Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Yusuf Shakeel and you are watching jQuery tutorial series. In this video, we are going to learn how to wrap existing elements inside new elements. And we'll also learn how to remove existing elements from our page using jQuery. And guys, all the code that we are going to write in this video, I'll put them in my GitHub repository. And the notes of this tutorial will be on my website dyclassroom.com. I will put all the links in the YouTube video description, so please check that out. And guys, if you enjoy watching my videos, then please subscribe my channel by clicking that subscribe button, and please don't forget to click that bell icon so that you will get notified whenever I upload a new video. Alright guys, let's get started. I have opened the project folder in Sublime Text. And inside the project folder, I have created a new file, wrap.html. And I have written the following code. And inside the JS folder, I have created a new file, wrap.js, which is this one. And I've included this JavaScript file in our HTML file by writing this script tag. And I've also included jQuery, which is also inside the JS folder. And now we'll save this file and open it in Chrome. So we'll open our project folder and we'll open this wrap.html file. And we'll also open the DevTools. So we'll go to View, Developer, and we'll select the DevTools. And we'll switch to the Console tab. And since it is empty, that means we don't have any error. Alright. Our first topic is the wrap method. And we use the wrap method to wrap an existing element inside a new element. So let's say inside our HTML file, let's say inside the body we have a paragraph having ID sample-p1 and it has a text, let's say hello world. Now let's say we want to wrap this paragraph inside a div. So at this moment, if we save the file and go back to Chrome and reload, we get the paragraph. And if we inspect the elements tab, we can see inside the body we have that paragraph having ID sample-p1. Now let us go ahead and wrap this paragraph inside a div. So to wrap this paragraph, we'll use the wrap method. So our first topic is the wrap method. So first, we need to target the paragraph, and we are going to target this paragraph using the ID, which is sample-p1. So we'll write $, within round brackets inside double quotes, we'll write hash, since we are using ID, and then we'll write the ID, which is sample-p1. And now we'll call the wrap method. And we'll pass a div because we want to wrap this paragraph inside a div. So we'll pass the opening closing div tag. And now if we save this file, go back to Chrome, and now if we reload, we get the paragraph. But if we look inside the Elements tab, we can see inside the body, we have a div, and inside this div, we have the paragraph, which is having an ID sample-p1. So using the wrap method, we are wrapping this paragraph inside a div element. We can also give this div some attributes, let's say class or ID. So if we comment this line, save the file, go back to Chrome and reload, we again get the paragraph and there is no div wrapping this paragraph. So this time we are going to wrap the paragraph inside a div and we are going to give that div an ID, let's say sample-div1. So we'll again target the paragraph. So we'll write hash and then sample-p1 and we are going to call the wrap method. And this time we are going to create a div and we'll give it an ID sample-div1. So inside the wrap method, we'll pass $, round brackets, and we'll write div tag, then a comma, then we'll pass an object, and this object will contain an ID, and the value of that ID will be sample-div1. So by writing this, we are first targeting the paragraph having ID sample-p1. Then we are calling the wrap method And then we are creating a div element and we are giving it an ID sample-div1. And this div element is going to wrap the paragraph having ID sample-p1. So now if we save this file, go back to Chrome and reload, we get the paragraph hello world. And if we inspect the elements tab, we can see inside the body we have a div having ID sample-div1. And inside this div, we have the paragraph having ID sample-p1 and the text hello world. So if we want to wrap an existing element inside a new element, then we use the wrap method and we pass the element that we want to use to wrap the existing element. In this case, we are using a div tag. Similarly, if we want to give the new element that is going to wrap the existing element some attributes, let's say ID or class, then we use this approach. So we first target the element, the existing element, and then we call the wrap method, and then we create the element. In this case, we are creating a div element, and then we pass an object which contains some key value pairs, and in this case, we are creating an ID attribute and we are setting the value to sample-div1. Similarly, we can add a class to this div. So if we give a comma, and in the next line, if we write class, so we are creating a class attribute, and let's say the value will be, let's say sample-div1-class. So now if we save this file and go back to Chrome and reload, we'll again get hello world. And if we inspect the element in the elements tab, we can see inside the body we have this div having ID sample-div1, and this div has a class attribute and it is set to sample-div1-class. And inside this div, we have the paragraph having ID sample-p1 and the text hello world. Our next topic is the wrap all method. And we use the wrap all method to wrap multiple elements inside a new element. So let us go ahead and comment this line. And if we save the file, go back to Chrome and reload, we get the paragraph and we don't get that div which was wrapping this paragraph. Now let's say inside our HTML file, we have, let's say, 3 paragraphs. So each paragraph is having a class sample-p, and the text is para1, para2, and para3. And now let's say we want to wrap these 3 paragraphs inside a div. So in order to wrap these 3 paragraphs, we'll use the wrap all method. So our next topic is wrap all method. So if we want to target these paragraphs using class, so in our JS file, we'll write $ round brackets and within double quotes dot sample-p. So by writing this, we have targeted all these 3 paragraphs having the class sample-p. And now we are going to wrap these 3 elements inside a div. So for that, we'll call the wrap all method and we'll pass the div tag. So now if we save the file, go back to Chrome and reload, we can see inside the elements tab, we have a div, and inside this div element, we have the 3 paragraphs. Similarly, we can give this div element an ID, or we can give it a class. That is, we can assign some attribute to this new element, which is wrapping these 3 paragraphs. So for that, let us go back to our code and comment this line. And we are again going to target the 3 paragraphs by using their class. So we'll write $ round brackets and within double quotes dot sample-p. And this time we are again going to call the wrap all method. And now we are going to create a div element, and we are going to give this div element an attribute ID. And let's say the value of this ID is, let's say, sample-div2. So by writing this, we are targeting all the elements, in this case, all the paragraphs having class sample-p. And then we are calling the wrap_all method. And then using jQuery, we are creating a div element and we are giving it an attribute ID, and we are setting the ID to sample-div2. So if we save the file, go back to Chrome and reload, we again get the 3 paragraphs. And if we inspect the Elements tab, we can see we have a div having ID sample-div2. And inside this div, we get the 3 paragraphs having class sample-p. Similarly, we can also add another attribute, let's say class. So we can write a comma, and in the next line, we can add another attribute, class, and we can set the value, let's say sample-div2-class. So if we save the file, go back to Chrome and reload, we again get the div, and this time this div has an ID sample-div2, and it also has a class sample-div2-class. And inside this div, we again get the 3 paragraphs. So this div is wrapping all the 3 paragraphs having class sample-p. So if we want to wrap multiple elements inside a new element, then we use the wrap_all method. And if we want to give the new element that is going to wrap the targeted elements some attributes, then we use this approach, where we create the element and then we pass an object which consists of some key value pairs, where the key is the attribute, and then we have the value, which is the value of that attribute. And in this case, we are targeting all the paragraph having class sample-p, and then we are creating a div and giving it an ID sample-div2, and we are giving it a class sample-div2-class. So using the wrap_all method, we are wrapping all the paragraphs inside this div, and we are getting this result. Our next topic is the wrap_inner method, and we use the wrap_inner method to wrap inner content of an existing element. So let us go ahead and comment these lines, and if we save the file, go back to Chrome and reload, we get the paragraph and the wrapping div is gone. So now, let's say we want to wrap this para1, para2, and para3, this 3 text inside span tag. So in order to wrap the inner content of these paragraphs having class sample-p, we have to use the wrap_inner method. So our next topic is wrap_inner method. So we'll first target all the paragraphs having class sample-p. So we'll write $ round brackets and within double quotes dot sample-p. And now we'll call the wrap_inner method. And since we want to wrap the inner content of these paragraphs inside span tag, so we'll write the span tags. So we'll have the opening, closing span tag. So now if we save the file, go back to Chrome and reload, we get the same output. And if we inspect the Elements tab, we can see the paragraph having class sample-p is having a span tag inside it, and the text para1 is enclosed inside the span tag. Similarly, we can inspect the second para. So the content of the second para is also inside the span tag, and we can also inspect the third. So the content of the third para is also inside the span tag. So if we want to wrap the inner content of an existing element, then in that case, we use the wrap_inner method. We can also add attributes to the wrapping element by applying the same approach that we have used in the wrap_all and the wrap method. So let us go ahead and comment this line, and this time we are going to wrap the inner content of the paragraphs having class sample-p. And this time, the span tags that are going to wrap the inner content will have, let's say, a class sample-span. So we'll first target the paragraphs, then we'll call the wrap inner method, and then we'll create a span tag, and this span will have a class attribute, and the value will be sample-span. So by writing this, we are targeting all the paragraphs having class sample-p, and then we are calling the wrap inner method. So we are trying to wrap the inner content of the paragraphs, and using jQuery, we are creating a span element, and we are passing an object which contains some key value pairs. And in this case, we are adding a class attribute, and the value for that class is sample-span. So if we now save this file, go back to Chrome and reload, we again get the same output. And if we inspect the elements tab, inside the body, we can see the paragraph having class sample-p, and we inspect this first para, we can see that we have the span tag, and the opening span tag has a class sample-span, and the text is para1. Similarly, we can check the second para. So the content of the second para is enclosed or wrapped inside a span element, and the opening span tag has a class sample-span, and we have the text para2. Similarly, the third para, the content of this third para is also wrapped inside a span tag, and the text para3. So if we want to wrap the inner content of an existing element, then in that case, we use the wrap inner method. And if we want to add some attributes to the wrapping element, then we use this approach, where we first target the existing elements, then we call the wrap inner method, then using jQuery, we create the new element. In this case, it's a span. And then we have an object which contains the attribute and the value for that attribute. And in this case, it's a class, and the value is sample-span. Our next topic is the empty method. And we use the empty method to remove all the content of the targeted element. So let us go ahead and comment these lines. And let's say we want to remove the content of this paragraph having ID sample-p1. So in that case, we'll use the empty method. So our next topic is empty method. So if we want to remove all the content of a targeted element, we first target that element. And in this case, we want to target the paragraph having ID sample-p1. So we'll write hash sample-p1. And then we call the empty method. So now if we save the file, go back to Chrome and reload, we can see the hello world text is gone. But it's the text that is gone, not the element. So if we check the elements tab, we can see inside the body, we have that paragraph having ID sample-p1, but the content of that paragraph is gone. So if we are using the empty method, then we are only removing the content inside the targeted element and not the element. And this brings us to the next topic, which is the remove method. So we use the remove method when we want to remove the element and its content. That is, we want to remove everything related to that targeted element. So let us go back to our code and comment this line. And if we save the file, go back to Chrome and reload, we again get back the text hello world. And now we are going to remove this paragraph from our page using the remove method. So our next topic is the remove method. So we'll first target the paragraph having ID sample-p1, and then we'll call the remove method. So now if we save the file, go back to Chrome and reload, we can see that the text hello world is gone. And if we inspect the elements tab, we can see inside the body, we no longer have the paragraph having ID sample-p1. So when we use the remove method, we are not only removing the content of the targeted element, but we are also removing the element from our page. So if we want to remove the content of an element, then we use the empty method. And if we want to remove the element and its content from the page, then we use the remove method. Alright guys, this brings us to the end of this tutorial. I'll post the tutorial notes on my website duyclassroom.com, and all the code that we are writing in this tutorial series, I'll put them in my GitHub repository. You will find all the important links in the YouTube video description, so please feel free to check that out. And guys, if you find my videos interesting, then please like my videos. And guys, please don't forget to subscribe my channel if you haven't already by clicking that subscribe button, and also click that bell icon so that you will be notified whenever I upload a new video. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in my next video, and like always, stay happy and keep smiling. Bye.